to welcome you to our online presentation today. We're going to be talking about academic integrity and how it relates to your work here at Webster. My name is Emily Scharf. My title here is Head of Research Services, and I work in the library in St. Louis. And I'm going to have my co-presenter introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Carolyn Brown, and I am the Writing Center, Online Writing Center and Plagiarism Prevention Program Coordinator here at Webster.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Carolyn. So I want to draw your attention to a new website that we put together this summer. This is our academic integrity website, and I'm going to go ahead and go out to it and just share it with all of you. So you'll find it at webster.edu/academic-integrity. You'll find some information, general information about academic integrity, which we're going to cover today in our presentation. But you'll also find under student support information about how you can maintain academic integrity, so things like time management and note-taking, some academic skills that you can build. There's information here on using the library and conducting your research. There's information on documenting your sources or citation, and then links to other presentations that are going to be related to this topic. So the presentation we're doing right now, we'll put this one on there, and there's some other ones as well. There's some FAQ section where you can get a little bit more about academic integrity and things like paraphrasing and plagiarism. And then there's contact information for all of us who work with this topic. And we'll make sure that you have that at the end of this presentation too. But we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this resource in the kind of suite of resources that we talk about today. So we're going to go ahead and do some definitions then. So academic integrity is a part of being an honest and responsible student. So when you are doing your work here at the university, whether that be through papers or presentations or projects, or even the times that you're having class discussions, you of course are given the opportunity to express your ideas and to keep building on what you learn. And so being a person who operates with integrity is going to carry you through your academic career and of course through your life as well. And so we just want to make sure that you kind of understand what these concepts mean and how to apply them. So when you are operating with integrity, you are going to basically trust yourself. You're going to undertake your research honestly, and this is the biggest part of this. You're going to give credit when you use others' work. So the easiest way to avoid plagiarizing and the best way to maintain academic integrity is to give credit where credit is due. So when you are using someone else's work in any capacity, you're going to give them credit. Usually we do that through citation, which we will talk a lot about through the rest of this presentation, but it really is that simple, is giving credit. You're going to accept corrections. So as you're working through your undergraduate or graduate degree, you are going to get feedback from instructors, sometimes feedback from other people, and keeping that as part of your learning process. Doing your own work, so doing original work for each class, which means that you're not recycling papers that you've written in other classes for current classes. And of course, showcasing your own abilities, having that self-confidence to know that you know what you're doing. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn now, who's going to talk a lot more about writing and research in an academic setting.
Thank you, Emily. So when engaging in academic writing and research, it is now time to exercise your critical thinking skills. You're also going to be synthesizing information in ways that you may not have done previously in your education. By demonstrating your knowledge, exploring topics in depth, and utilizing research. So what your professors are going to ask you to do is to be able to give a combination of both your knowledge and the research that you're undertaking in any given writing project or paper. In academic research, we encourage you to use credible sources. So this means no Wikipedia or similar user-edited sites, because they're not reliable and anybody can go on there and change the information. And to also minimize your use of websites. We prefer that you begin to utilize academic resources such as databases, library catalogs, and peer-reviewed journals. And if you need any more instruction on what these areas are, you can certainly contact any reference librarian here at the Webster Library. You have to remember that any information that you've learned from online sources requires attribution or citation, and they're not considered your own ideas, so you will have to cite. Let's turn our attention to plagiarism. Plagiarism is the misuse of any words, ideas, images, or other creative property developed by someone other than yourself. So it's not enough just to cite when you take somebody else's words. Any other source's ideas or images is also their intellectual property. So you need to absolutely cite any information that is not common knowledge, that is somebody else's. Even if you agree with that person, they've said it before you, so you need to give them credit. The most common misuse of source material is when the source's words or ideas are conveyed as if they are yours. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what proper citation entails in just a minute. Your work must be a reflection of your knowledge with proper attribution. Submitting your own work for a different course or project is also plagiarism, and in this case, it's called self-plagiarism. Instructors assign projects with the expectation that they'll reflect what you have learned in that course and utilize new views and ideas that you've learned specifically for that course. So if you're recycling papers, your professor will not take kindly to that, and you want to avoid that at all costs. Only when the work is revitalized and the instructor approves may previous work be used for a new course. And I'd like to add that this is on a case-by-case basis, but know that in general, your previous work will not be accepted in a current class. And if you do cite yourself, if you do cite, yourself from that previous work, you literally have to give another citation for that work. So let's talk about some disciplinary actions that might happen if you were to be found having plagiarized at Webster University. You may be asked to repeat the assignment. You could receive a reduced grade or partial credit on the assignment, or you could receive a failing grade on the assignment or in the course. And as an extra consequence, you may be put into the plagiarism prevention program. If a student receives an unsatisfactory grade, a C or an F in a course as a result of academic dishonesty, existing academic policies may lead to probation or dismissal, according to Webster University's Student Handbook. In academic writing, you want to use a formal tone and formal language. So please avoid second person, the use of you, use first person sparingly, and avoid slang or informal phrasing. So for example, phrases that we say in our everyday speech when we're talking with others, phrases such as in this day and age, or with that being said, or nowadays, are not appropriate for academic writing. And maintain your objectivity and formal style as you write. And again, you want to balance your research appropriately. Create a foundation of your own ideas first, and then support with relevant research. If your paper is composed mainly of outside research and you have very little of your own analysis, your professors probably will not like that, because they want to hear what you have to say about a subject. So it's your responsibility to really analyze and evaluate and use research in balance with your own ideas and thoughts.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. So I do want to let everyone know, if you have any questions as we go today, your microphones are turned off, but you can put those in the chat box and we will answer them whenever you have them. So as we're going, if there's something that isn't clear, if there's a question, please go ahead and ask it there in the chat. All right. So switching gears a little bit here to talk about using direct quotes. So when we have a source that you are using, that you are quoting directly, you are taking their exact words, you want to make sure that you are using quotation marks in this case and that you're not revising the source's words because you're using a direct quote. This is something that you want to do in a limited fashion. So you don't want to have your paper include many direct quotes. It's something that you want to use sparingly in the way that we talked about sort of sources in general. And you don't want to rely on long quotations. So in a case where you're using a quotation, a direct quotation that's very long, perhaps think about how you might paraphrase that instead and use that information in your own words. And of course, no matter what you do, you have to provide a citation for that information. So paraphrasing is when you are rewording the source's quotes and ideas. So you're putting what you've learned from a different source, a book, an article, something like that, into your own words. You're using different words and you're using a different sentence structure. You're not just taking a thesaurus and replacing a couple of words. You're not using quotation marks in this example because you are paraphrasing a source, but you are maintaining the idea, and of course you are providing a citation. Okay, we've gotten a question in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and read that and see if we can answer that right now. Sometimes it seems the professor wants you to provide examples in your own way, but using the language that's in the book. At times I feel like I'm having to use the same words as the text so I get the message right. I get the right message across. Is this wrong? So I think in this case, the best thing to do is probably talk with your professor. So for certain fields that have a very specific vocabulary, things like computer science or something where the language that's used is very specific, you do sometimes have to use very similar words and phrases because there's not necessarily a way to paraphrase that. Let me let Carolyn weigh in here a little bit.
So if you're using technical language, for example, which I think that's what you're asking in your question, you can also put the technical language in quotes, or you could put them in italics and then cite them the first time so that you're giving credit where the terms are coming from, and then you can go ahead and use those terms yourself in your paper.
Great. All right, keep those questions coming. Thank you. All right. So we've talked about in-text citation, and this is where you're going to credit the material immediately. So you are going to have either a quote or a paraphrase, and then in parentheses, right after that in the sentence, you're going to cite your source. So that can be the textbook that you're using in class. So for our last example, when you're learning technical language from your textbook, sometimes that is the thing that you are citing. So this happens in other places too, where maybe you're learning a new vocabulary for something and you've learned it from your textbook. If that is not something that you know or that you would be expected to know, you are going to sometimes be citing your textbook. In other cases, if you're doing a research paper or a project, you're going to be citing the sources that you found doing your research. So articles, books, things that are not assigned by your professor. You're going to provide the author, the year it was published, and the page number if you are citing in APA style. And you are going to make sure that it's right after the idea that you're using, not just at the end of a paragraph. So sometimes you're going to cite something multiple times in a paragraph. That's acceptable. That's something you can do. Sometimes you're going to have a paragraph with, just one citation in one sentence, or different amounts of citations like that. And then in your references page, you're going to have a list of complete citations of all of your sources. So anything that you cited inside your text, so inside your paper, anything that you put in the in-text citation, you're going to have a full citation in your references page. You're going to want to make sure that that is alphabetized by author's last name, that it's double-spaced, that there's a hanging indent, and again, that those match, that citations for the things that you've cited in the text are in the references page. We'll talk in just a minute about where to find help on this stuff and how we can help you, because this is, of course, a lot of information. So one of the places where we can help you is here at the library. So we are going to be sort of the experts, the people who can help you find the things that you're citing. So we're going to be able to help you find research. That might be articles, that might be books, that might even be websites, depending on what you're researching. But the types of questions that you can ask us are things like, maybe you have to narrow your topic, so maybe you know that you want to focus on something like human resources, but that is too broad of a topic and you're not quite sure where to go from there, so you could ask us for advice on that. If you have a topic but you don't quite know where to start finding research, you can ask us questions about that. We have a chat service that is available 24/7, so there is the chance to ask for help all the time. You can also stop by the library. If you're in St. Louis, you can come to the library building. We have research librarians here every single day. Otherwise, you can call us, or if you click on Ask a Librarian on the library's website, there's lots of ways to get a hold of us. You can email us, and again, you can stop by or give us a call. So lots of ways to get help from the library.
Thank you, Emily. You can also get writing help at the Writing Center. We're located in St. Louis at the Academic Resource Center in Loretto Hall, and we offer all sorts of writing assistance and coaching for essays and projects. And whether you are just starting out and you need to do some brainstorming, or you need help with thesis development or structure of your paper, or you have a full draft and you would like us to go over that with you, or you even need help with documentation, we can do all of those different kinds of writing coaching for you. Appointments are made in half-hour and hour increments, and you can either come into the Writing Center or you can make an appointment, and you can go to Webster, mywconline.com, and make an appointment. And if you're not in St. Louis, we also have an online Writing Center for you, where you can submit your paper via World Classroom. Go to the Resources menu and pull down the tab, and you'll see Writing Assistance, and then you can submit your paper directly through that, and we will receive it, and one of our online coaches will read your paper and give you feedback and return that to you in about 2 to 3 days. We do look at your content. We're not a proofreading service, but we're happy to look at any other elements of your paper that you're wanting feedback on.
All right, so we've covered a lot of different topics here today. So we want to make sure that you have our contact information if you need further assistance. So our phone numbers and emails are on the screen there. I also want to make sure that you have the library's website, which is library.webster.edu. And again, if you click on Ask a Librarian from there, you've got lots of options of ways to get a hold of us and ask for research help. And we want to make sure to leave a little bit of time for questions if anyone has any questions here live, and if you're watching this on the recording, please feel free to get a hold of us if you have further questions. But thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll stay on the line for just a minute for questions.